Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And on this edition, we're going to get you geared up for the Saints Week 8 matchup. The Saints head to Lucas Oil Stadium to take on the Indianapolis Colts. And in a lot of ways, New Orleans Saints fans are looking at this game as a must-win for the New Orleans Saints. Look, we know over the last couple of weeks it's been really, really tough for Saints fans and also the team in general. The New Orleans Saints dropping 2 straight, losing 4 out of their last 5 games, and the morale of the Who Dat Nation is at an all-time low. I can't remember the morale being as low as it has been probably since before Hurricane Katrina. Saints fans don't really have a lot of trust when it comes to this team due to the coaching staff, due to the quarterback play, and offensive or lack thereof innovations that they have seen. But we all know that the cure to any type of situation like this is a win. And the New Orleans Saints have an opportunity to win this football game. Now, the New Orleans Saints will be dealing with adversity throughout the game. There's been a little bit of the sickness that's been going around the facility. Several NFL players, not only in the New Orleans Saints organization, but other organizations as well, been dealing with sickness. And, it normally happens this time of year, cold and flu season. Also, dealing with COVID as well. I mean, this is the time where most people, start to feel a little bit sick, the change of the weather going from fall to winter. And, living in the South sometimes, for those that do, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. I can think of like living out here in South Carolina, a couple, days it's been probably in the mid 60s. And yesterday, I was at the Coastal Carolina game. I'm standing on the sidelines. It was like 81 degrees. So, I mean, there's so many people out there that deal with sickness. And like I said, these NFL players are dealing with it. And it has been happening with the Saints organization. Even head coach Dennis Allen is sick. But irregardless to what's going on with the team, you still have to find ways to get a victory. I'm excited to announce that A.T. Perry will get his first opportunity. He will be active today. Keith Kirkwood sustained an injury, so he won't be a part of the game. Jimmy Graham isn't inactive. James Hurst isn't inactive as well. Michael Thomas was a game time decision because he was dealing with an illness, but it looks like he will play. Look, I look at the Indianapolis Colts. They're a team that, to me, they have players, of course, that some of them you probably know, but they don't really have household names, at the wide receiver position. Of course, everyone knows about Michael Pittman Jr. He has 489 yards receiving this season. But when you think about other guys, Josh Downs, Alex Pierce, Kalen Granson, these are combinations of tight ends and wide receivers. And I know when people see stuff like that, they're like, man, it should be an easy game for the defense. But I look back to the game versus the Houston Texans, where you had guys like Nico Collins out there. Nico Collins is a good, solid receiver, but he's not knocking anybody's socks off. And I noticed that when the Saints play guys like this, when they play players that don't have the household name, that don't have the notoriety, and people don't really know them, they seem to struggle. And it's probably because they don't know who to zero in on. I feel like that's a great advantage for the opposition when they're playing the New Orleans Saints, because sometimes I feel like when the New Orleans Saints don't really go up against top-notch receivers, they kind of get lobbed to sleep, especially guys like Marshawn Lattimore, who is historically known for neutralizing some of the best receivers in the league. The biggest issue is when they go up against these unknowns. And, of course, the running game is really extremely important for the Indianapolis Colts. Zach Moss has 523 yards. He's second in the league in rushes right now. The only person that has more rushing yards than him is Christian McCaffrey. So if you are in the same conversation with Christian McCaffrey in any regards, it tells you what type of season that you're having. Of course, Jonathan Taylor, he missed a few games. There were some contract disputes that were going on. Of course, he ended up getting his contract extension. He comes back, and he's been playing outstanding, and we all know the threat that he possesses. So they have a two-headed monster out there in Indianapolis. You don't have Anthony Richardson. Of course, he has shoulder surgery. He will be out for the season. So Gardner Minshew will be the starting quarterback. Gardner Minshew is a guy who has been around the league, played for a couple teams, played for the Jaguars, played for the Eagles last year, and now he comes to the Indianapolis Colts alongside their brand new head coach, Shane Steichen, who was the offensive coordinator last season for the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Saints are very familiar with Gardner Minshew. They played him in all three spots where he was in. This will be the third time the Saints will play him with his third team. They played him back then with Jacksonville. It was tough for Gardner. They played him against the Philadelphia Eagles. It still was tough. So the Saints seem to do a really good job at neutralizing Gardner Minshew. But we seen last week versus the Cleveland Browns, who had the number one defense going into that game. Gardner Minshew made some plays, not just with his arm, but also with his legs. And I think that's something that the Saints are going to have to pay attention to. Gardner Minshew is not Lamar Jackson. He's not Michael Vick, but he can move around in a pocket. And if you give him opportunities, he will scramble for extra yards. So the Saints have to make sure that they actually have a spy on him, making sure when they go in man coverage, when the cornerbacks and the wide receivers, when their back is turned, Gardner Minshew isn't scrambling for another 25, 30 yards. So I think if the Saints can neutralize Gardner Minshew, not allowing him to get comfortable in the pocket, not allowing him to be able to sustain drives with his legs, I think they should be fine. Now, it's going to be tough for the New Orleans Saints to try to shut down this running game. A lot of teams have tried but have failed, and we know that the Indianapolis Colts can put up points. Shane Steichen, a new head coach, comes over from Philadelphia, former offensive coordinator, comes in with different plays in order to get the playmakers involved in the game. So it's going to be pretty tough for the Saints defensively because Shane Steichen does a really good job at understanding what players he has and putting them in a position to succeed. When you look at the New Orleans Saints, I think we all understand that the Saints offense has been moving the football as of late, but the problem has been the red zone. Getting down to the red zone has not been an issue for the New Orleans Saints, but cashing it in has. 7-19 on the season, 36% coming into this game against the Indianapolis Colts. If the Saints want to win this football game, it's about taking advantage of these opportunities. The defense has been playing outstanding, giving them opportunities to get the ball, getting interceptions, getting turnovers, not only getting turnovers, but getting turnovers in plus territory, giving the Saints a shorter field, but they still have not been able to cash it in. And Saints fans are going to be looking extremely close, of course, at quarterback Derek Carr, who has come out and has talked about some of the conversations he's had with the offense, trying to get on the same page. We all seen the blow-ups on the sidelines. A lot of us interpret it in certain ways. Derek Carr saying that's not the case. Look, I don't care what it is. The only thing that matters is putting the ball into the end zone and putting the ball into the hands of the playmakers. I also feel like the Saints need to open it up a little bit. How about giving the guys that can make plays opportunity to make plays? It's not that hard. You got a dynamic wide receiver in Rashid Shaheed. How about opening up the playbook, giving him an opportunity to make plays? Chris Olave, we know what he can do. Michael Thomas, we know what he can do. Michael Thomas may be dealing with a little bit of a snap count due to the illness. We seen this last week with Bijan Robinson with the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They put him a little bit on the snap count due to his illness. So this is an opportunity for a guy like A.T. Perry to come in and take advantage of the plays. But, of course, once again, It's about offensive innovation. It's about trying to make sure that you put the ball into the hands of the guys that are capable of making plays. Alvin Kamara last week had 12 catches in a game. That's fine and dandy. We know that Alvin Kamara can make plays, but at the same time, you have wide receivers that are capable of making plays as well. So how about not looking so much for the check down and taking advantage of some of these players and allowing them to be able to make plays and give them the confidence that they need? Right now, I feel like offensively, the confidence is low because guys don't feel like even if they're open, they're going to get the football. And that's a little bit of a concern. Also, how about getting a running game involved? We've seen the frustration of Jamal Williams not getting touches. We've seen Kendre Miller get a drop in touches, even though when he touches the ball, there's some promise there. I know it's tough to be able to get so many plays for different guys that are so dynamic. There's only one football to go around, but that's why these offensive coordinators get paid the big bucks. That's why you are on the big stage, because you are supposed to be able to do things like that. So this could be the start of something, of a turnaround for the New Orleans Saints if they focus on it. I'm very, very I'm looking at this game very, very closely because you had 10 days to be able to come up with this game plan. You had 2 games to be able to watch the Indianapolis Colts and see them in action to come up with a game plan. If the Saints come out there stagnant or they can't stop the Indianapolis Colts, I think this is going to be really, really concerning about how the rest of 2023 is going to be. Because look, you played on Thursday night, you got a little bit of a mini bye. Guys got opportunity to kind of get away because of that disappointing loss versus the Jaguars. You get the opportunity to come back, have fresh eyes, feeling a little bit refreshed. And if you can't come up with a better game plan, I think that it's time not so much to fully panic, but have a little bit of a higher level of concern when it comes to the New Orleans Saints football in 2023. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments. Thank you all for being here. Start off with Cool Sports. Thank you very much for the $19.99. He says, at this point, I say that I'd rather Taysom Hill start over Derek Carr. Since we know DA won't give Jameis a chance, at least Hill is not scary and would use his legs sometimes when protecting breakdowns. Look, that is true. As far as some of the things that were said about Derek Carr, I played a clip last episode. Sean Salisbury, former quarterback, covers the Houston Texans out there in Houston on ESPN radio. He talked a little bit about the conversation he had with a Raiders coach, referring to Derek Carr, saying that he likes him. He thinks he's talented, but there are some times where he gets a little bit rattled and, he starts to like get a little shaky, in certain situations. So that's not a very good thing to hear from a guy that your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, gave $150 million to with $100 million guaranteed. But what I said at the top of the show is very, very simple. Like, we talk about these players and we talk about the concern and all these things, but we all know that if you win a football game, that is the greatest remedy. That's when guys start to kind of calm down. They start to buy into the game plan. Fans are very, they're very less likely to be critical of the product that they're actually seeing. So the Saints, if they get a victory today, they'll be able to, move in the right direction. And maybe some of the noise about Derek Carr, if you go on a little bit of a winning streak, will start to go away. Because right now, Saints fans do not believe in Derek Carr. I mean, I did a poll where 1,300 people, took the poll. And, Derek Carr, I asked the question, do you believe in Derek Carr? And 58% of those people said no. I mean, you still had, 42% that said yes. But, for the most part, people are questioning, did the Saints make the right decision? So Derek Carr has to get it together, because right now the morale of the Who Dat Nation is low. And there's only so many times where you can just sit up there and say, oh, the fans don't know what they're talking about. And, look, I know some people are very, very critical of me. When I was talking about Chase Daniel with his critique and saying he was saying that it wasn't Derek Carr's fault. And people were like, well, this guy's been in the league 14 years. He knows more than you. Look, he may know more about football than me, but look, I don't care what anybody says. I'm not in the business of just because a guy has been doing this for a certain amount of time, like It just means he's right all the time. I with that type of mind frame, I can understand. To be quite honest with you, there's some controversy going on in regards to a DJ named DJ Envy, and apparently that he was a part of a real estate Ponzi scheme. And when people start talking about, well, I invested my money based on this guy being a part of the advertisement. That I feel like that's the dumbest thing ever, in my opinion. Like, you should never just look at a person and be like, oh, because he did it, like I need to do it too. I trust him. Like, just because Chase Daniel's been in the league for 14 years doesn't mean he's always right. I mean, it's like, okay, JT O'Sullivan was in the league. He bounced around the league so many times, and he critiqued Derek Carr. And some people feel like he's right, and some people feel like he's wrong. I mean, just because you have the skins on the wall don't mean you're necessarily right about everything. And that definitely doesn't mean that a person has to agree with you based on the fact that you did it. I mean, how many quarterbacks have done, been in the league, but not very good? So that's the way I feel about it. At the end of the day, I think this guy just needs to play better. And I think all Saints fans, they're not dumb and they're not naive. And the Saints organization can pretend like these Saints fans are, but they're not. Like, we've watched enough football to understand what good quarterback play looks like. And we know that a lot of people are trying to save Derek Carr's face. I mean, it's just that simple. Like you don't have to be an X's and O's guy to know that a player is playing like trash. I mean, if you don't want to believe that or don't want to see it, or you try to go find like different sources to validate your feelings, fine. We all know how YouTube works. We all know how social media works. I mean, social media and YouTube is designed to create a world based on your interests. If you start watching or paying attention to different content on YouTube or on social media, you will start to see more content that involves what you're into. So a lot of people feel like, Derek Carr, if you feel like he's the answer, there's a group for you. If you feel like he's not the answer, there's a group for you. But at the same time, like, we have to be real about what we're actually seeing. And when you pay a guy $100 million to go out there and play the game of football, you expect better results. You expect the guy to be able to lead a team to victory. You expect the guy to be able to win in spite of his circumstance. And Derek Carr is incapable as of right now of doing that and giving us that belief that he can. That's simple. Let me stroll a little bit and go to Paul. Says, unless I see there's a huge change in the offensive play calling, it's the same painful experience week after week. I'm good. I think that people just want to see a large enough sample size to have something to believe in, Paul. I don't think that this game, even if the Saints go out here and win, I don't think that this absolves them of anything, because the biggest issue that we have as Saints fans is the Saints giving us false hope, going out there looking like world beaters versus the Patriots, only to turn around to look lackluster against the Houston Texans, and then again against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But it's too much of a mixed bag. People want to see consistency. That's just the name of the game. We all want consistency, not only on the field, but in our life in general, right? It gives us a level of comfortability when we see consistency. So the Saints going out here, if they win the game, this can be the start of maybe possibly going on a run, knocking off the Indianapolis Colts. Then again, going home against the Chicago Bears, getting a little bit of a winning streak going, get the Who Dat Nation's confidence back. But I can tell you right now, look, based on his coaching staff, based on the quarterback play, based on the offensive innovations or lack thereof, Saints fans do not believe in this team. And a lot of people, they want to see the team fight to the end, of course. But if you were to put most Saints fans on a lie detector test, they'll tell you that they're looking forward to the end of the season to possibly get rid of some of these old mainstays with the Sean Paytonisms that are not working for this organization and embarking on a new culture that can be created by a new head coach or a new offensive coordinator and moving in another direction where the Saints can get back to being one of the best franchises, and not only in the NFC, but in the entire NFL. Anyone else have their brown paper bag ready? I ain't got no brown paper bag. I don't care how bad things getting. No paper bag over here, man. Saints lose 24-21. Book it. it will be a close game. However, the Saints will come up short yet again. Sorry, I'm just keeping it real. I can't be biased anymore until they show me something different. Tyree, look, I think a lot of Saints fans echo your sentiments. I think that a lot of Saints fans are very, very cautious about giving the Saints any type of victory because, look, at this particular point, we expected for the Saints to possibly have maybe 1-2 losses at this particular time. But it just shows you, no matter what the schedule is, no matter who they play against, no matter what the quarterback play looks like, this team just cannot get out of their own way, and they just cannot take advantage of the opportunities that have been presented before them, no matter what talent that they come out there with. So, I mean, I can understand everyone's cause to pause about picking the Saints to beat anybody, no matter how good the team is, no matter how bad the team that they have to play. But they have to get it done. They can change the narrative and they can change the belief of the Who Dat Nation, but it starts with them going out there and getting a victory, and it can start today versus Indianapolis in Week 8. I swear, if I see 35-yard fade route on a 3rd and 3, I'm turning the game off. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the Saints definitely play the sidelines way too much. They don't really play in the middle of the field unless they're checking it down to Alvin Kamara. I think the Saints need to utilize the middle of the field. I just think that Pete Carmichael's play calling those fade routes to the outside, and man, it just has not been working. And also like the low percentage goal line calls, throwing fade routes in the back of the end zone, which has like a 23% probability of working. You have 2 really good running backs, 3 if you count Kendre Miller, that can be able to give you a yard. And I'm always a prime believer if it's 1st and goal on the 1-yard line and you can't run the ball in, I feel like you don't even deserve the touchdown. I feel like when you have to start like overthinking yourself, trying to throw the football into the end zone, I just think that tells me everything that I need to know about your team. If it's 1st and goal on the 1-yard line and you can't get the ball into the end zone, you can't get 1 yard, that's pretty sad. Not giving my hopes up no more. Not about to have me having a heart attack at 26. Yeah, I mean, look, I tell people all the time, be a fan, love the team like you've always had, but man, just watch the games and don't really just put so much emotion into it at this particular point because the Saints don't want to tell us this, but I think we all can see that they're trying to figure it out. So no need to like put added pressure on a team that's trying to figure it out and not living up to the expectations because they have shown us over the last year and a half that they are a mixed bag. So until they show us something different, I just say that we just kind of be cautious. I mean, cheer for the team, still have that same type of fire and passion that you've had, but also be able to understand that this is a process and no need to be able to get yourself all riled up about a team that is giving you very little reason to do so. I'm looking forward to situational coaching. We have a Super Bowl caliber team. Our defense can get the job done if the offense can put up points and get the defense rest. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the frustrating thing about it, and that's the reason why I think so many Saints fans are as angry as they are. Is because the Saints do have a team that is very, very talented. They do have a team that can be able to go out there and win games consistently and even compete with some of the best teams in the NFC. But we all see that coaching is important. Like you can have so many different talented players, right? You can be a really good, like you can be a really good team. But we know that it takes not only having a good team, but good coaching to go alongside the team. It's like having all the ingredients to make a great dish, but you don't have the chef to put it together to make it taste well, right? I mean, you got all of these different fixings over here and you can get it done. But at the same time, it's not going to taste like anything because you don't have the proper chef to be able to make it work. The Saints have the talent, but to me, they don't have the coaches to be able to make it work. So no matter who they put out there, they're going to look pedestrian. No matter how talented the players are, they're not going to be able to utilize them in ways that they need to be utilized. Thus, it's going to leave us as Saints fans in disappointment more times than not. TJ, the host, do you still believe we can win the division and get into the playoffs? Look, based on this division is the reason I feel like you still have a chance because this division isn't very good. These teams are terrible. I mean, it's amazing where the NFC South has been and where they are now. I mean, if you look at the NFC South, you had Cam Newton, who was a league MVP, Matt Ryan, who was a league MVP, Drew Brees, who should have been a league MVP, but offensive player of the year, Super Bowl MVP. And, you had like Tampa kind of, figuring it out with quarterbacks. You still had Jameis Winston, who had talent in his own right. I mean, now you have, Desmond Ritter, who a lot of Atlanta Falcon fans are wondering, like, is he the right guy? You got Bryce Young, who's going through growing pains. He's a rookie, first overall pick. You got you got Baker Mayfield out there. So, I mean, and then you got Derek Carr, who we are very frustrated with. So it's amazing where this conference has been and where they are now. It's not very good. So based on that, I still feel like the Saints have a chance to be able to make the playoffs, win the division. But it starts with having to get out of your own way and put together some wins, right? Going out there, winning football games that you need to win. Because right now, if you're looking at the playoff picture, Tampa is ahead of you because they beat you. And you have the Atlanta Falcons who are winning the division right now. So there's not too many losses that you can continue to pile up and think that you're going to be a playoff contender, because now you have other NFC teams that's probably going to find their stride, and they'll probably have a better NFC record with you than you do, and that'll catapult them above you. So you're getting more and more in the realm of having to win the division to make the playoffs, especially when you're losing games against certain teams that the NFC teams are playing against and winning. So if you lose to that team and the other NFC team beats that team, then that means that team is jumping in front of you. So the Saints are going to have to find ways to win, games and get out of their own way. But based on how terrible this division is and how no team seems to try to separate themselves, it seems like they always lose on the same week, win on the same week. There's still a chance, but what are you going to do when you make the postseason? I mean, if you don't have the belief that when your team gets into the postseason, they're just there. I mean, does that account for anything? And honestly, we've been living on false hope for the last 2 years. So I'm kind of tired of that. I feel like if the Saints were to make the playoffs, I mean, I want them to make the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. If the Saints make the playoffs, it would give this organization false hope to bring back Dennis Allen and probably some of these coaches that have been inept for the last year and a half because they made the playoffs. So we all know that sometimes the Saints fall for the banana in the tailpipe, so to speak. They feel like there's something there when they start to, maybe show some progress or win some football games. They're a different type of cat, right? They're not like how it is in Philly or New York. They feel like they take a lot of moral victories when they're applying to trying to keep coaches around. And we all are kind of tired of those moral victories. Moral victories are not going to get you where you need to be. Moral victories are not going to sell out crowds. Moral victories are not going to get you to the Super Bowl. Moral victories are not going to keep coaches around. So the Saints kind of live on that, and I just feel like they shouldn't. But we all know that if they probably make it to the playoffs, they will have this false sense like we're almost there. In reality, we all know that they're not. Independent media like yours help me cope. Mainstream Saints media is too forgiving. Well, look, I understand where they're coming from. You got a job to do, and also there's a certain level of rapport that you have to have with the team. I mean, that's just the reality, man. I mean, look, there's an old saying, and I know this might tick a lot of Saints fans off, of fans in general, but you got to go along and get along sometimes, right? In certain situations, like, you have to be able to maneuver a certain way. And that doesn't mean that you're fake. That doesn't mean that you're phony. That just means that, you got to do what's necessary. Like me, somebody that's similarly independent, like, I can be a little bit more critical of the team, but these media personalities, they have to interact with these coaches. They got to see them, and they probably know them on a personal level. And we all know that sometimes, like, when we know people on a personal level, get to know them, sometimes we are very, very cautious about some of the criticisms, especially like when we know certain things behind the scenes. And we always have to take that into account as well. Like, there's certain things that certain media members are probably privy to. They're not going to come out and say those things. So they probably adjust their writing or their takes accordingly. But as somebody that, I mean, for the most part, I'm pretty cool with the majority of the media members that cover the team, I get opportunity to talk to them, and I can be able to see it from a different angle. And that's not my wheelhouse. I'm not in the facility every day. I know what's going on for the most part, but some of them just have to adjust accordingly. So I'm not going to knock them for that. But at the same time, I will be critical if you actually see something, know something, and don't want to make it obvious. That's when I feel like it falls into that category where you're being disinterested. You're not doing the people, not doing what's best for the people. I feel like that's when it starts to become a problem. Like when you know what the issue is, but you don't want to express it, or you pretend that it's not there, you become oblivious to it. But if you have reasons behind that, and more than likely those reasons will come out later, and you're just kind of holding off on before you actually pull the trigger, so to speak, I can give you a pass. But if you are just completely and utterly in denial, just on the simple fact that you just want to get along, I'm not a fan of that, right? But I mean, you can get along, but it has to come in a way like, I'm just holding off. I'm trying to see where this thing goes. We see that all the time. And if you ever like study media, you know that sometimes a media person will say, I got this information right here. And they will tell like a member of the organization's PR team or the representative of that particular player. And, they'll probably develop a relationship and say something like, can you hold off on it? I promise you he's going to say something about it, or she's going to say something about it. And, they'll probably do it. But if you're just basically withholding information just for the simple fact of doing it and trying to go along and get along, I feel like that's not in the best interest of the people, because that's journalism 101, being a man or a woman of the people, to give them access to things that they wouldn't give themselves, that they couldn't get access to. That's the role of the media, not so much covering up for an organization to make yourself look good and keep yourself around. That's where I feel like that's not cool. TJ, I told you and everybody else at the beginning of the season that with DA and Carr, the Saints will go 6-11, 7-10. I will support wherever he goes next year. Okay, well, shouts out. I guess you're talking about with Jameis Winston there, but yeah, I mean, look, it's not a really good team, and a lot of false hope was given. As of right now, it's just looking like this team just has not been able to figure it out, but we'll see. I'll take a few more and then we'll go ahead and get up out of here. Says CJ, one of the many issues the Saints always had was a lower expectation. My name is TJ, by the way, but I appreciate it, man. It says winning games in regular season is fine. Get into the playoffs to lose in the first round and find it's okay to miss the playoffs. Yeah, I just think that just creates a false sense of hope. Like, and also it's going to make this organization, Mickey Loomis, feel like, oh, they're close. But I just feel like you basically just kind of setting yourself up for the same thing every single year. And I'm telling you, like, going into year 3, the Saints fans are not going to tolerate this. Like, they're going to tone it out. They'll probably watch the games, but you're going to see a drop in merchandise. You're going to see a drop in ticket sales. You're going to see something, because Saints fans want to have hope, but they're not delusional. They're not going to create the hope for themselves. Like, you got to give them something to believe in. And if this organization continues to double down and alienates the fan base like they have been doing over the last couple of years, they're going to find themselves like looking like one of the worst organizations. And we don't want it to be like that, because we know how hard it is for some of these snake-bitten organizations to be able to find ground again. We see how long it took for the Jets to be able to be relevant. We see how long it took the Miami Dolphins to find their quarterback and find stability. We've seen how long it took the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they were winning and going to the playoffs, to be able to break through and be one of the top teams in the NFC. So you don't want to fall down that rabbit hole. You want to be able to fix this, understand it, have those tough decisions, make those tough decisions, even though you probably don't want to, but you have to do what's best for the organization. And you got to do right by the fan base that spend their hard-earned money going to these games, buying this merchandise. You can't alienate them and expect for them to stick around. Let's see. Sorry, I call BS on the Saints team. Nothing they will do or say is going to change anything. I agree. I think people have had enough of Dennis Allen. I think they had enough of Pete Carmichael. I think that you know, Derek Carr has not ingratiated himself into the culture. I think he rubs a lot of Saints fans the wrong way, and you know, it's not a recipe for success. And I just think that Saints fans are looking for something different. And the Saints are going to have to give them something different. Rather it's a winning streak, rather it's some hope that they can actually go all the way, or it's going to be like you got to give them hope by a new head coach. But you got to give them something. You can't just go and bring this whole regime back and just say things are going to be better. We seen the New Orleans Saints when they had lack of talent. We seen the Saints when they had talent. We seen the Saints when they had a lead and what they did with it. We seen the Saints squander a lead. We've seen the Saints win in every way imaginable when it came to Dennis Allen, nail-biting games, dominant victories, and we've seen them wet the bed with Dennis Allen. Teams coming back on them not being able to seal a deal. So I don't know what more Saints fans need to see or how you can be able to prop up Dennis Allen any longer. Like, nobody believes in this guy. Like, nobody believes in Dennis Allen. Even if the Saints come out and they dominate Indianapolis today, nobody still will believe in this. Everybody still will feel like this is smoke and mirrors. But you have to give them something to believe in. A consistent winning streak, stability offensively, a constant pressure on quarterbacks defensively and generating turnovers. You have to give them something to believe in, because if not, then once again, nobody is going to support this team the way that they have. People are going to just be sitting at home watching the games, probably shaking their head most of the time, and you're going to see people just become disinterested. You're going to see more and more people start gravitating towards the Pelicans or NBA basketball or LSU or Tulane. You know, that's just the way that it goes. And it's not that it doesn't make them fair weather. Like, that's the problem that I have. Any place that you go to, like if you go to any business and you buy clothes or you buy shoes, it's supply and demand, right? You know what I mean? They supply a product for you that meets your interest, and you pay your hard-earned money, right? You buy shoes, you buy clothes. This product on the field is not giving people something to believe in, right? And I just think that when people start saying the word casual, I just think that that's a cop-out and try to, buy into their insecurities. Now, there are casual fans out there that kind of just rode the wave, but you have passionate fans out there that feel like this team has unlimited potential, and it just ticks them off every time they see it. And, and it's well within their rights to be able to adjust accordingly. The Saints have to give fans something to believe in. That doesn't make you fair weather if you feel that way. That's the dumbest thing I think I ever hear people say, is when you critique a team or you are critical about a certain player, or you fair weather. Like, first off, that's absolutely ridiculous. And if you know deep down inside you're not fair weather, and you have some rando telling you that you're not, like, it's absolutely ridiculous. So let's give the Saints fans something to believe in, Mickey. Let's give the Saints fans something to believe in, Dennis and Derek and some of these other players that are trying to figure it out. Look, I don't think Rome was built in a day. I don't think that even if the Saints win today, it's going to absolve them of all the things that we've seen, but it's a start. What I expect in this game, I expect defensively to get pressure on Gardner Minshew once again, respecting his ability to be able to scramble, making sure that you actually have somebody that understands that. Also getting the running game involved. The offensive line, once again, Andrus Peat more than likely will be taking the reins of left tackle. The offensive line played pretty decent. Andrus Peat did a pretty decent job at left tackle last week. You're going to get Ryan Ramczyk back. He dealt with a concussion. More than likely, he'll be playing in this game. And also being able to utilize some of these playmakers, right? Being able to run the football, being able to capitalize in the red zone when those opportunities present themselves, and also being able to play free and having fun. I feel like a lot of the players offensively are uptight. They're a little bit rattled, confused. I feel like the energy is completely different than years past, where they felt like they can make plays. All they had to do was get open. I just feel like guys need to start having fun again. I understand that there was a players only meeting with Michael Thomas kind of facilitated along with a couple more seasoned veterans, just talking about accountability and staying strong and working as a team. Look, I'm not real big on team meetings in the season. I just feel like they never work. I've never really seen a team meeting actually work. But at the same time, them being able to put everything out there could possibly be a start to be able to keep this season together. I'm not going to give a score because at this particular point, every time I give a score, like I just feel like I'm doing it based on what I felt at the beginning of the season. I honestly don't know if the Saints are going to win this football game. I expect for them to play a little bit better, having 10 days to be able to come up with a game plan. But I do expect for the Indianapolis Colts to be able to make some plays. I expect for the running game of the Indianapolis Colts to possibly take part in this game. Should be interesting to see. I'll be back at halftime to talk a little bit about what we saw in the first half. And, of course, the post-game show immediately following the game, win, lose, or draw. Keep it locked right here to the State of the Saints podcast for all your up-to-date information on the New Orleans Saints. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Really do appreciate it. Make sure you check out the previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. Till next time, I'll see you in the second half. And all I got to say is, who dat?